to today's video. And in today's video, we'll be talking about hypertension. And in talking about hypertension, we'll be looking at the definition where you talk about blood pressure. We will look at the risk factors where we talk about modifiable and the non-modifiable risk factors. We will look at the signs and symptoms of hypertension. Then we look at ways in which we can reduce our risks of developing hypertension. What is hypertension? Now, for you to fully understand hypertension, you need to understand blood pressure. Now, blood pressure is defined as the force exerted by circulating blood against the walls of the major arteries. Let's look at that this way. Blood moves in your body to all parts. Now, as it moves, it pushes against the walls in the channel in which it moves. Now, some of these channels are arteries, some of these channels are veins. Now, when the rate at which it pushes against the wall is high, that is when you have high blood pressure or hypertension. So hypertension, simply put, is when your blood pressure is too high. Now let's look at hypertension. Now in the risk factors, we have two main branches. We have the modifiable risk factors and the non-modifiable risk factors. Now the modifiable risk factors are the risk factors we can manipulate or change. Now in the modifiable risk factors, the first we will talk about is diet. Now anyone who takes in too much salt is at risk of developing hypertension. This is because salt contains sodium, and when sodium is high in your body, it exerts pressure on the heart. It makes the heart pump faster. Now when the heart is pumping faster, the rate at which it pumps blood out will be high, therefore increasing the pressure. And when the pressure is increased, it increases the pressure in your blood vessels and your arteries, making you be at risk of developing hypertension. Anyone who also takes in too much saturated and trans fats is at risk of developing hypertension. We will later go into some of these foods, the trans fats and the saturated fat. Now, the mechanism for the action is this: when you have too much fats in your body, it narrows the lumen of your blood vessels. Now, when the lumen narrows, the blood that's supposed to flow inside these blood will flow at a high pressure because the road has become small. So as it narrows, it pushes against the wall with very high pressures. Now when these pressures are high, you put yourself at risk of developing hypertension. And people who do not eat too much fruit or vegetables put themselves at risk of developing hypertension. Another modifiable risk factor we can look at is inactive lifestyle. That is people who do not exercise regularly. You see, our body contains fats, and we eat a lot of food, and these fats tend to go choked up in our blood vessels. Now, when you exercise, you burn all these and allow circulation to every part, every vessel in your body. Now, if you do not do that, you put yourself at risk because there will be fat development, and by the time you realize, the place has narrowed so much so that the pressure at which the blood is pushing against the wall is high, putting you at a very high risk of developing hypertension. Another modifiable risk factor is smoking and people who take in tobacco. See, tobacco has the tendency to narrow your blood vessels. Now, it narrows the lumen in your blood vessels. So when the lumen is narrowed, blood flows with a high pressure. And when it flows with a high pressure, you are at risk of developing hypertension. Now let's look at modifiable risk factors. Now these are the risk factors you cannot change. These are the risk factors you cannot manipulate. The first of them is age. Now the older you go, the higher you are at risk of developing hypertension. People in their 60s get into their 70s are at a high risk of developing hypertension. because their blood vessels are weak, and any little pressure that the blood will flow with, it pushes against the walls, putting them at a very high risk of developing hypertension. Then another group of people, or another group of non-moderable risk factor, is your family history. If a close relative, let's say your mom, your dad, or any close sibling, your cousin, your sister, or your elder brother has ever been diagnosed with hypertension, you are also at the risk of developing hypertension. Now, people with coexisting diseases, people with diabetes mellitus, like people with chronic kidney diseases, or any form of kidney disease, puts themselves at a high risk of developing hypertension. Look at what shows that I have hypertension, the signs and symptoms. Now, the first we'll talk about is early morning headaches. When you get up in the early hours of the day, you experience severe headache. You are either on your way getting hypertension or you already have it. Now, blurred vision, where you see things not clearly, is either a sign that you have hypertension or you are developing hypertension. Another sign of hypertension is buzzing in the ear, where you will be hearing the buzzes of a bee. You will put yourself at a high risk. Either you are developing it or you've already developed it. Now, chest pain, specifically left chest pain. This is because when your heart is overworking, your heart is found on your left side of your chest, and when it overworks, one of the things that will show you that it's overworking is pain. And when you experience the left chest pain, is either you've developed developing hypertension. Now, fatigue, when you get tired so easily, you are either at risk of developing it or you've already developed it. Now, muscle tremors, where your muscles will be shaking as you are, tingling as you are there. It shows that you are either having it or you are on your way having it. Now, finally, let's look at how we could prevent ourselves or reduce our risk of developing hypertension. Now, the first we will talk about a healthy diet. And when we say a healthy diet, we are saying eat a balanced diet, a well-balanced diet with fruits, with vegetables, with all the necessary nutrients in their correct proportion. Now, we said to avoid saturated and trans diets. Now, when we talk about avoiding saturated foods, these foods are the beefs, the lamb, the chickens and their products, their dairy products like the milk and the butter. These things are high in saturated fats and you should avoid them. Now, some of the trans fat food includes popcorn, the microwaved popcorn, the margarine, the fried chickens, the hamburgers, the french fries. All these, if you could cut them down, you'll be at a very low risk of developing hypertension. Now, same with our diet. If you be eating foods like the green leafy vegetables like the lettuce, it puts you a very low risk of developing hypertension. Now, when you eat a lot of yogurt, a lot of oatmeal, a lot of banana, a lot of salmon, mackerel, or fish with omega-3 fatty acid, if you eat sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, if you use oils like olive oil, it puts you at a very low risk of developing hypertension. Now, let's talk about physical activity. See, some people, by the nature of their sits for long hours, but that shouldn't be the case. You should get up once in a while, at least thrice in a week. Get to jog, get to skip, get to walk, get to run for at least 15 minutes so that you can burn a lot of fat, you can burn a lot of calories, so that in so doing you put yourself at a very low risk of developing hypertension. Then avoid tobacco smoking. As we saw from our earlier part of the video, that tobacco puts us at a risk of narrowing the lumen where pressure will be very high. So if we could stop our tobacco use, we will put ourselves at a very low risk of developing hypertension. Then avoid alcohol. Avoiding alcohol also puts you at a very low risk of developing hypertension. Alcohol does a lot of harm to your body, from destroying your liver to your heart. If you want to stop hypertension, stop the intake of alcohol. Then lastly, talk about managing stress. You see, stress, when your body is stressed, your heart becomes stressed. When your heart is stressed, it pumps under pressure. When it pumps under pressure, you are at the high risk of developing hypertension. So if you manage your stress, try meditation, try relaxing, you would also put yourself at a low risk of developing hypertension. So thank you for today, and this has been Hypertension. It's been good sharing this knowledge with you. So we would like you to leave your comments, subscribe our channel, and hit the notification bar so that you'll get notified with our new videos. Thank you very much, and see you again soon.